Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's been a busy hour or so. I've currently emptied one of our gooseberry bushes, as in I've cut all the branches off that are bearing fruit. It's a huge bush, so there's plenty of growth left on it for next year. The missus, who you can just see there, she don't like being filmed, is picking blackcurrants. I've got windfall apples already falling off that are about this big. I've got rhubarb to pick, so I think it's time that I started to get this together and make my first fruit wine of summer 2025. I'm not sure what the full range of ingredients are going to be at this point in time, but this is just the introduction and we'll come back to the rest of it maybe tomorrow. Catch you then. Hey folks, I'm back now with a further garden wine update. This is going to be the first of 2 days where it comes to making the wine. It's going to take me 2 days because it involves a heating process and a cooling process, and I'm fermenting in a plastic fermentation vessel, which is my Munton's wine fermenter. So everything needs to be cool before I can actually put it in there. So I'll explain to you the heating process after I've gone through the key ingredients. Let's have a look at them. So the ingredients are a movable feast, and I may add more to this yet, but essentially what you've got in there is 1.5 kilos of gooseberries, and I've got another 6 kilos of gooseberries which are on standby. I've got some windfall apples there, some windfall apples there. I've got 1 kilo of blackcurrants which have been frozen. These are from the garden, and 1 kilo of white currants also. So I've got currently over 3 kilos, probably near enough 4 kilos of fruit just here alone. Now that is a lot more than I would normally put in 2 gallons of wine. However, because I'm using a steam press for this today, and I haven't told you about that yet, but I am using a steam press for this today, I'm doing it slightly differently. I'm extracting the juice and leaving the flesh and the husks of the fruit behind. Now, fingers crossed, hopefully, this is going to be sufficient, but if I do need to add more, then I've got plenty more gooseberries on standby, and I've also got about 2 to 3 kilos of rhubarb still to pick, which I haven't picked yet. I know it's late for rhubarb picking, but it's a really good plant, massive provider. So I am kind of up here, you know, I'm a bit back and forth, I could say, as to whether I need to put more in or not. I won't know until I see how the extraction works. So I've talked about steam press, I've talked about extraction, heating up, but I haven't actually showed it yet. Let me show it you. So this is my steam press. It's a Tectake steam press. So essentially, this is a pan of water which sits in the bottom of the steam press. It holds 4 litres of water, and on top of that sits this device here, and you'll notice at the front it sits snugly into that little divot just there. So when I put the heat underneath this, the water boils and steam comes up here. That steam hits this colander basket. It hits this part here, and then it drifts up into where the fruit will be. Now, if I'm making cider, I have this filled right to the top, mounded, if I'm just extracting the juice for 1 gallon of cider from apples, and I'm only using juice. However, in this recipe, I'm using more than juice. I'll come back to you about that in a second. But essentially, the fruit that is in here will be broken down by the steam. The steam will drip through these holes into here, and you'll notice that there is a little small hole down there which is connected to this pipe, and the juice will come out of this pipe and into an awaiting demijohn, which will be down there below. Now, I could put tons and tons and tons of fruit in this, but I think I'm going to end up wasting fruit and putting too much in this. So I'm not going to put tons and tons and tons in. I'm putting more than I normally would in, and I may still add more to it yet because I have an abundance this year because we've had such a hot summer. But I'm going to play it by ear as I go along. Now, other ingredients that are going to go into this are over here. I've got dextrose monohydrate brewing sugar. I'm going to put probably up to 2 kilograms of that in there, and I'm going to use some spring water, not tap water, because I think the spring water gives a cleaner flavour. For the yeast, I'm just using Young's dried active yeast for use in winemaking and brewing. And then I will add some pectolase to break down the pectic enzymes because I'd like this to be a clear brew if possible. So today is going to involve processing the fruit and turning that into liquid, which we'll collect in there, and also melting the sugar in hot water there. I'll need to leave that to cool overnight here to put into this tomorrow. I'm going to leave it in the Munton's wine fermenter for about 10 days, maximum 12 days, and then I'm going to rack it into demijohns and then just leave it to finish fermenting in demijohns. I'm essentially going to take it off of the sediment so it will clear as much as possible, and then I'm just going to leave it. Now there's actually a real reason why I'm doing that, not just a brewing reason. I'm off to Australia for 3 weeks, and if I leave it all in here for that time, it'll just go tasting a bit funky. So if I put it into demijohns, then it won't be sitting on the lees as such. It will be a cleaner flavour from being racked into a secondary fermenting vessel. That was a big introduction, wasn't it? And it's red hot. Right, anyway, let's crack on with that recipe. So first off, I'm going to get my windfall apples and I'm going to half them like so. Now there's a reason why I'm doing this. I want to line the bottom of this colander basket with the apples with the flesh facing downwards, like so. Now the reason that I'm doing that is that the gooseberries have got tiny little seeds in them, and I'm trying to prevent as much as possible the seeds going through those holes because I don't want them to clog up inside there. Now it probably won't happen, but I'm just trying to be overly cautious to make sure that it doesn't happen. So I've probably not got enough apples to achieve that fully anyway, but I'll try and do the best that I can. I'm actually going to go and have a look if there's any more windfalls because it seems to be dropping about this many every 2 to 3 days at the minute. It's currently July. So I'll come back to you when I've got my apples in there. So as you can see, I've fairly successfully got the apples to cover the bottom, and as the steam hits them they'll flatten out and then they will cover the holes, hopefully preventing, fingers crossed, the seeds from these going through. Right, I'm now going to add the gooseberries into this. So big dramatic pour. Now most of these gooseberries are actually frozen, some of them aren't. The ones that have gone in just now aren't frozen, the ones that are stuck in here are. If they were all not frozen, I probably would have pulped them a little bit just to get through the skin, because the skin's quite tough on gooseberries. But because they're frozen, it will just break down. It's a bit like frostbite on human skin. So that's now the apples and the gooseberries in there. The next ingredient in will be white currants. I'm just going to tip them on top. Again, these are frozen also. Take a bit of encouragement. Try and avoid getting the leaves in, although it doesn't hurt. So that's now all my white currants in there. And then my black currants are in this bag, and the bag is split, so I'm just going to be very careful. So these have been frozen as well. And I've got a lot more in the fridge which aren't frozen. It's really starting to fill up now. Right, I'll show you the story so far, and that's the story so far. So we've got apples, gooseberries, white currants, and now black currants. There's a bit of room on top there. Do you know what? I'm going to chuck some more gooseberries in because I've got tons. In fact, I'm going to put some more black currants in on top first. These were freshly picked last night, the last of this year's crop. I've got another 2 kilos of black currants in the fridge, which I'm going to stick in a saison. That'll be in a separate film. Winter beer. And these were some gooseberries that have also been picked yesterday, the last ones. So that's full enough, I think. So I am going to get, hopefully, a ton of juice out of this. Probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, more than a gallon. Right, there's the colander basket for the steam press. That is full enough. So I'm going to put that on top. So I've got water in the bottom, funnel pan in the middle, colander basket just here. Lid goes on. And let me show you the setup. So here's the setup, and I'll talk you through it right now. So we've got the water reservoir down here. That will bubble up, it will go through the funnel in the middle, it will hit the fruit in the colander just here. That will dribble down into here, it will catch in this spout, it will go down this heat-proof pipe, down into this awaiting demijohn, and it will collect in there. Now the demijohn is stood in a metal pan because this is very hot, boiling virtually liquid that's going to hit it. If the demijohn cracks and fails, then the pan will catch it rather than it going all over the floor. And the pink towel is simply to protect the laminate from the heat, which will build up just there. I think I'm just about ready to go. Let's switch on. So I'm using a wok ring, which is a double burner, so it's an outer burner and an inner burner. So I'm going to have it on the lowest possible heat, otherwise it will rage. And that is sufficient. So you can see the flame underneath that. Now, not much is going to happen for the next probably 45 minutes, but soon after that, hopefully something will start to happen. So I'm going to come back to you when there's some signs of progress. This is 20 minutes later, you can hear the water boiling. I think another 20 minutes and we'll see something coming down here. So typically I've missed the first dribbles, but it's happening. This is literally 40 minutes after putting it on. And you can see you've got stuff coming there. You get a better idea when you look down into the demijohn. The height of the fruit has gone down a little bit as it compresses, as the liquid is removed from it. There's really not much more for me to say, so I'll come back to you in a bit. See you then. Just 30 minutes later, and you can see how much this has darkened now as the black currants take effect. Yeah, it's coming through nice and steadily. Hey folks, an hour later, update. So the water in here had virtually run out, there was a tiny bit left, so I've switched the whole thing off, added more water to it, and I've now put it back on. The water's now coming to a boil again. Dripping's not too extensive at the minute, there's more steam coming out than anything. I'm going to have a look inside the top. So it's dropped down an awful lot. What I'm going to do is use a potato masher and just compress it a little bit, just to see if I can break down any fibres which might release a bit more juice. There is definitely more liquid in here because it's still quite wet, but whether I can get it out or not is the question. So put the lid back on. Now I realise there is still going to be some liquid left in that. Even when I've got all the juice out of it extracted that I can, it'll still be a bit wet. What I could do is put it in a sieve, get a wooden spoon and get it to come through in like a puree form, leaving the hard stuff behind. But that then goes against the whole principle of using the steam press. The steam press is to avoid doing that. So what I'm going to do is just leave it now. I've filled this back up and I'm hoping that I'm going to get more liquid out of it. Certainly I should definitely be able to fill that demijohn, and it is not far off the top. So I'll come back in a bit. See you then. So just an update, half an hour later. Dripping has recommenced. It's coming through very, very slowly. I'm just going to leave it. It will eventually fill this up. So I'll come back to you when that demijohn is full and we'll have a look back inside the steam press then. Right, it's just been action stations in here. Came in and realised that this was about to overflow, so had to remove that and put a glass jug underneath it because there is still definitely juice coming out, so I'm going to carry on collecting as much as what I can. Right, I've got a slight change of strategy here. So that's still going down there into the jug for the time being. That's in there and it's red hot and it'll take ages to cool down. And that pan is now empty and it's clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this demijohn of very hot must wine must, and I'm going to pour it into the pan. You can see how hot it is, and that the oven gloves are essential, otherwise I'll be burning myself. Right, that's all in that pan, which leaves the demijohn free. Just going to bring that pan up here, put it on a ring, and I'm going to cover it over with this just to keep any contaminants out. Right, so I've got the demijohn back under in a deeper pan. I'm going to add this that I've just collected in with this lot, and it'll cool down a lot quicker in there than what it would have done if I'd left it in the demijohn. Now the seeds have come through, you can see them in the bottom just there. Never mind, there's nothing I can do about that, but at least there will be in the sediment in the bottom and not in the bottles at the end. And just to be doubly sure of that, when it comes to racking, I will rack it through a sieve. Anyway, it's back to playing the waiting game. Well, it's about 90 minutes later. I've had to refill the water reservoir in the bottom of there again. I don't think there's a lot more to come out of this now. The tap seems to have run fairly dry. There's the odd drip, but certainly no flow. If I have a look in here, that has pretty much gone down. So I've had a bit of a brainwave. I was going to melt the brewing sugar in this water, but why don't I pour the water through this to flush out any more juices and flavours that there might be until this demijohn has filled up, and then just switch it off. Why don't I do that? I don't know. Let's just do that. So I'm actually going to turn the heat off of this now. So no more burning any gas today. I'm going to take that off, and I'm literally going to pour water now over the top of the fruit and let it wash out any more flavour and goodness that's in there. And that's happening right now. And you can see from the colour of it that's coming out that there definitely still is some stuff there that's worth having. So I might as well get everything out of there that I can. I'll come back to you when I've done. Right, so it's all change again. Well, not quite all change, but modifications, I can say. So I've poured the rest of the spring water into that, and that's now gone through and it's waiting in the reservoir. You can see it's in the pipe, and I've just put that clip on to lock it. And I'm holding that in place because I am going to put everything into this pan, so that will transfer into here. But before I can do that, I want to sanitise the pan, so I've put some water in the bottom. I'm going to bring that to a boil. I'm going to then let it build up steam inside there to sanitise and clean it. I'm going to pour the liquid must there into this pan. I'm going to empty that demijohn into this pan. I'm going to get the rest of the liquid from there into this pan, and then I'm going to put my 2 kilos of sugar into this pan. Right, I'll come back to you in a bit. Right, the big pan is now cleaned and sanitised. So I'm going to get what's left in here into the big pan first. Release this. There we go. Oh, it's making me want to go. I mean, yeah, you can see that there's bits and bobs in there, but it's fine. I will filter it at racking point. Just to ensure I get everything out, I'm going to tip, and that adds a torrent. Yeah, so that was good, and I can actually smell the fruitiness from that, the gooseberries and the blackcurrant particularly. I don't think the white currant and apple adds tons of flavour, but it definitely adds substance to it. Right, what I'm going to do with that is I'm simply going to tidy this away, out of the way, and I'm going to put the clip back on it, just in case it does produce any more liquid, and if it does, then I can add that tomorrow. So here's what's in the big pan. So next I'll add what's in the demijohn into the big pan. Right, here we go. Steamy stuff. And now this is what I took out earlier today in the other pan, so I might as well just tip all that into the big pan as well. And now I've got a right big pan of steaming hot must. So that steaming hot must is going to go back onto the ring. I'm not putting the ring on, but I'm going to put this back on top of it now because I want the heat to escape but no contaminants to go in. And I'm going to add the sugar in there in a little while. I've got some tidying round to do. I shall come back to you shortly. Okay, change your t-shirt, it was getting a bit hot. Here's the must. I have had it in the fridge, I've cooled it down, it's now at room temperature. Just feels quite normal, to be honest. So I'm going to put the hydrometer in there and see what the gravity is. So it's very low, actually, very low. It's only on 1.012, which is nothing. So I am going to put 2 kilograms of sugar into this. But before I do that, I will have a little nifter. Gooseberry is the overarching flavour. Second place, blackcurrant. That's all I'm getting, really. Very tart, but actually quite a nice body to it. But yeah, let's get that sugar sorted. Right, scales are zeroed. Let's go in with a new bag of sugar. I've got 5 of these. I buy them off eBay. I usually go through 5 bags a year. So 3 jugs should be about 1 kilo. And it's 1,033 grams, or 34, near enough. And then that goes into the hot must. I've got to do that one more time. I'll be back. Right, I'm going to stir this to get that 2 kilos of sugar to dissolve, and it will dissolve pretty easily, to be honest. And that goes back on. And there's not really much more for me to do now until tomorrow because I've got to let this cool down properly. I can't take a gravity reading in there because it's too warm. So I'll take another gravity reading in the morning and pick the recipe up then. So catch you tomorrow. Preparation day 2, stroke brew day 1. See you then. Hey folks, it's preparation day 2 and it's time to chuck this lot together. Let's have a look. So this is what's been left overnight and it is now just room temperature. It doesn't feel warm or cold, it's just room temperature. I'm going to take a gravity reading in a sec. It's going to be poured from here into here. The Munton's wine fermenter. If there's any left over, I'm not too worried. The reason being that I'm starting a fruit saison beer tomorrow, so if there's anything left over here, I'll just chuck that into it. And the other thing about today is to add the dry ingredients. So this has been sanitised, it's all nice and clean. I need to take a gravity reading though. So we'll see if this will take a gravity reading in this pan or if I'm going to need to use the hydrometer tube. And it will take one in the pan because it's very buoyant. Okay, so we're looking at an original gravity of 1.080, 1080. Now if this does go all the way to 0.990, then I'm looking at about a 12% mark wine, but it's going to be somewhere between 11.5 and 12.5 I think, and I'm really, really happy with that because that's what I was looking for. Right, it's time for the big dramatic pour, that into that. Let's hope it's not too dramatic. I must admit, it's not my favourite thing. Here goes. It's like blood, isn't it? Oh, this is going to fit, I think. Let's just let that go down. Yeah, I'm going to risk it. I think I've got a tiny amount left, and I mean a tiny amount. I'm going to leave it as is actually. It's frothed up a lot as you'd expect, I'll show you. So what my intention was to fill it just above the thermometer sticker line, and it is a little bit, about half a centimetre higher than I was going to do it, and it's got that foam on top. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so here it is. Now, I'm not keen on all that froth on top, but there's not an awful lot I can do about it. It's just that I can't see when the krausen starts to build with all that being there. But I think I'm just going to have to live with it because I want to get the yeast in. I'm concerned if I don't, it might start to find something from somewhere and start fermenting anyway. So I'm going to put my pectolase in. So this is a 2 teaspoonfuls per gallon pectolase. So we'll call that 1, because I can't really get this teaspoon in very well. 2, 3, and 4. And to be honest, it's going to be a dark one. This is going to be a dark rosé. You're not really going to be able to tell if it's clear anyway, I don't think, but every little helps. Now I've got my yeast here, and usage 1 level teaspoon per gallon, so 2 level teaspoons of yeast essentially. So there's 1. I'm going to let it float on top, and 2. Now I've just realised I've not put any yeast nutrient in. Now I usually would do, but I'm not sure if I've got any, so I'm just going to go and have a check. And it turns out that I do, so why not put some in? I don't think it massively needs it because the amount of fruit fibre that'll be in there, but we'll put 1 of those and 2 of those in there. That should keep the yeast nice and happy. Need to get the Munton's wine fermenter put together. So this filter goes on top, and that is designed to stop the worst parts of any sort of krausenal build-up from going through the airlock. It'll hopefully keep the chunks that might be created behind. And this is the integrated seal, top, whatever you want to call it, and airlock. Just got to get it on the thread evenly. Nice and tight. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to dribble some water in the airlock until it starts to run out. There we go. So the airlock is at maximum fullness, which is fine. And this is the top of the airlock. That should snap into place. There we go. And then finally the lock. The Munton's wine fermenters are very, very good, I will say. I've never had a bad brew with it yet, fingers crossed. Oh, and I've just seen it's not made in China. Never noticed that before. It's made in Korea. Well, at least the plastic bit is on top. Right, okay. I'm going to have a little tidy round and then I'll come back to you. Right, all done for now. So I've labelled it up. Summer Garden Fruit Wine 2025, Original Gravity 1080, and today's date the 15th of July 2025. And what a beautiful irony. My Summer Garden Fruit Wine, after we've had such a good prolonged spring into summer heat wave, that on the day that I'm doing this, we're getting a right downpour. To be quite honest though, the garden was desperate for it, so I'm glad of the rain. Right, I'll come back to you when fermentation begins, as in when I start to see some bubbles coming through here. Might be tonight, might be tomorrow. I'll let you know. Catch you then. Hey folks, it's Brew Day 2, and here is a fermentation update. And as you can see, the foamy head on top has now developed into a full-on krausen. You can see the colour differentiation on there. It's going absolutely lovely, getting a bubble through every second or so. Really regular, really strong, and absolutely fine. There's been no big flood through or anything like that. And during the daytime when the sun was streaming through, I've had a towel round it to shield it from the sun so it don't go skunky. So from my perspective, this is going a-okay. I've got nothing else really to report. If I should get something to report, I'll come back to you. But if I don't come back to you until racking, it means it all went lovely and smooth, and I'll be seeing you in about 10 days' time to rack it. So catch you then. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. It is brew day 15 for my summer garden fruit wine, and it's racking day. Let's have a look. Here it is, and it hasn't been left on the windowsill. I've literally just put it there for the purposes of this film, but this has essentially stopped fermenting, or it's slowed down to 1 or 2 bubbles a minute. So it's now time to get it out of there and into these 2 cleaned and sanitised awaiting demijohns. So in this film today, I'm going to go through the transfer process. I'll talk to you about my technique, and I'll also mention some of the risks. Now you can see the Munton's wine fermenter has got this tap at the front. I don't know if the tap's going to work because it might be clogged with sediment, but I won't know until I've given it a try. So here is one cleaned jug, which I'm trying not to touch on any other surfaces, because the more surfaces anything touches, then the more likely something negative could happen. Now this seems to be flowing out of here just nicely. Okay, it's murky as I would expect, but nothing untoward. So yeah, it looks like bull's blood. And I probably should have released the airlock a bit because it's now doing that, but it doesn't matter. So I'm now going to pour this into the demijohn, and I'm using an old coffee filter from a machine which I no longer have, and this will catch any bits of trub that might be there in the liquid and prevent them from going into the demijohn, which will prevent them from going into the bottle. And now it's a case of repeat. And once again into the demijohn. Right, I've got to carry on doing this. I'll come back to you when the first demijohn is full. So I'm just on the second demijohn, but I'm just going to mention some of the pitfalls in doing this. First of all, it's exposure to air, which that is just there. It's not a big thing because it's not going to happen for very long, and once it's in the other demijohn, I've got the airlock back in, and there's activity which will create CO2, which will displace any air out of there. But the key thing is touching different surfaces. So this is touching the inside of the jug, the inside of the filter, it's touching the inside of the funnel and the outside of the funnel when it gets to the top. So you've really got to make sure that everything is really clean. So I use sanitizer and hot water, but you can still accidentally touch things and touch surfaces. Fingers crossed, everything will be fine. And I will say I've never really had a problem with cross-contamination, but you know, it can happen. So I've got my 2 demijohns filled just there, and there is some left in the bottom but not much, and that's the sediment level there, it's tiny. So what I've got here is enough for me to get a sample out to take the gravity at racking just there, and then what is left in here, I'm then going to fill this right up with water, and it's going to go back onto the garden from where the fruit came to feed the garden with what's left. And thus the circle will be complete. Okay, so this is 100 ml. I'm going to dip my hydrometer in. This isn't going anywhere near anything that I'm going to be using for the wine. This will go on the garden. So it started on 1.080 and it's now, wow, it's low. It's on 0.994. Wow, I think that's pretty much fermented out. I can't see it going much lower. It might go down to 0.990. We'll find out. Okay, I need to have a tidy round, do a few bits and bobs. I'll come back to you in 5 minutes. Hey folks, I'm back. Let's have a look at those demijohns, and here they are. Summer garden fruit wine. Brew day 1 was the 15th of July 25. Racked on the 29th of July 25. It's gone from 1080 to 0.994. That's demijohn 1 and that is demijohn 2. That's the order in which they came out. I'm going to put these away somewhere dark, somewhere out of the way, and I'm going to come back to them in about probably a month's time, maybe 5-6 weeks. We'll see. I'm off to Australia for 3 weeks, so I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to put them out of the way. See you next time, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It is brew day 36 for my summer garden fruit wine, and today it's big bottling day. Apologies, I'm just sandwiching this clip in at the beginning of the film because it isn't brew day 36, it's brew day 50. It's 36 days since racking, but it's brew day 50. I made a mistake, I read the wrong date on the label. Right, let's get back to the film. Let's have a look at it. So here it is on the windowsill, and I'm just going to put my hand behind so you can see it there. It is clear enough that will look lovely in a glass, a nice rosé colour. It's not been on the windowsill until about 5 minutes ago, so no worrying about sunshine on it. Not that there is much at the minute, but I want to get it out of there one by one and into these awaiting bottles. So I'm going to start with demijohn number 1, and I'm just going to film demijohn number 1. So first things first, I need to get a bit of sugar in each bottle, like so. This is what I call priming sugar. So priming sugar is designed to be found by any yeast which may be left alive in there. And I've got my doubts that there will be any yeast left alive in there, but hey, let's see. And if it does find this priming sugar, it will break it apart and it will release CO2 as a byproduct. The pressure from that CO2 will build up in the bottles, and that's what gives the cider, or the wine. It's wine, it's not cider, it's wine. It's what gives the wine a sparkle. Now, I suspect that the yeast will have expired, and if I get a sparkle, it's a bonus. So let's just see what happens. I'm bottling into this kind of bottle anyway, and that's a good precaution, because if I had bottled into normal wine bottles and it did come alive, even without the sugar, then I could be looking at bombs. So I'm taking the cautious approach. Then it is bung out of demijohn number 1. The siphoning tube goes in, held in place by that useful clip at the top. I'm going to push it so it's right to the bottom of the demijohn, because there's barely any sediment. Not sure if you can see where it is, but it's just about at the bottom. Now, I said there's barely any sediment. There is barely any, but there's a bit. So the first bit that comes out is going into my hydrometer tube anyway, because I want to see if the final gravity has changed. And it's slightly murky, and it's cleared up pretty much straight away, and into bottle number 1. Right, so while bottle number 1 is filling, let's just check the gravity again. So it was on 0.994, and it's now on 0.992. So final gravity reading is 0.992. And these are very dark bottles, and this is dark liquid, and it's hard to see. Now, I'm pleased to say that on bottle number 1 there is some reaction to the priming sugar. Let me show you. You can see that frothy ring there. That is a good sign, and that might mean I get a sparkling wine. So I've really got to keep an eye on these bottles now. It's an absolutely gorgeous colour. I love it. I wish I'd got clear bottles, really. So I've overfilled one, but it doesn't matter, I'll just tip it into another. But you can see that there is reaction to the priming sugar, so I'm happy about that. So bottle number 5 is almost full, and now it is. So into the final bottle, bottle number 6, I'm fairly confident that I should fill this bottle, and if not, when I've tipped out the overfill in the others, then it will be about right. And if not, then I'll just add a bit out of that one into this one and jiggle it round. And there we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube indicates this is done. Let's see how close I am. Oh, full, excellent. So I've got 6 full bottles, that's a great job done. Right, I'll just demonstrate bunging and caging on one of the bottles, on this bottle. So my bungs are reusable plastic bungs, and basically they last forever. I barely order any more these days, unless I've given some away. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the bung into the bottle, like so. Now I will add that the bungs have been in hot water to make them malleable so they're pushing nice and easily. And then I'm going to hold that bung in place with a cage, because believe you me, if there is yeast left alive and it does find that priming sugar, when it builds up pressure in there from the CO2 being released, it will send that bung off like a missile unless it's got a cage to hold it in place. So that is one bottle bunged and caged. I've got another 5 to do here. And then when I've done this 5, I've got the other demijohn to do. Now there's no point in you watching me repeat the process. So I'm going to come back to you when I've emptied the second demijohn and filled all of the bottles up, and we'll take it from there. So I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Proceedings have just been interrupted. I was about to work out the ABV, but more important things have come afoot. Yeah, I know, you're more important. She is. Right, now it's time to work out the alcohol by volume. So I take the original gravity, which was 1.080. I deduct from that the final gravity, which is 0.992, and that equals 0.088. I then multiply this by the magic number, which is 131.25, and this will give me the alcohol by volume, which is, drumroll please, 11.55%. Let's just say 11.6%. Because the ABV will increase fractionally if there is any yeast left alive there and it finds that brewing sugar, because it is a minute fermentation that takes place for it to sparkle. So 11.6% is a decent ABV for wine, and I'm very happy with that. Time to make some labels. So I've made a label up using a program called Printmaster on my iPhone. Summer Fruit Garden Wine, 11.6% ABV, brew day 1, 15th of July 25, bottled 2nd of September 25. This is connected via Bluetooth to my Fermenter Bluetooth printer, and all I've got to do is press print now. Fantastical. Work smarter, not harder. And then it's just simply a case of drying off and attaching a label to each bottle. Always nice to know what you're drinking. There we go. 1 down, 11 to go. And there they are, all done. Bingo. So the next stage in the brew process is conditioning. I'm going to put these away somewhere dark in a room where the ambient temperature is around about 21, 22, which most of my house will be for the next month. Okay, so the conditioning process will allow the sparkle to develop. So if there is any yeast left in there and it does find that sugar, then it will smash it apart, CO2 will be created, and I will end up with a sparkling wine. That is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is that it's just a bit of a damp squib or it's completely flat. If that happens, it happens. But the flavours of the fruit should start to develop now. So that's what I'm really looking for. I want to be able to pick out and taste the different fruit that's in there, and it not just taste like cider, essentially. So even though it's wine, not cider. But I want to be able to say, yeah, there's blackcurrant in that. Yeah, there's rhubarb in that, etc. So I'm going to put these away. I'm going to probably leave them for 2 months. So it's going to be autumn into winter by the time I come back to you. So I'll see you then. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It is brew day 102 for my summer garden fruit wine. This is a wine I started back in July, and now we're near the end of October. This has been in the bottle for over 7 weeks, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it might be a sparkler. And if it's not a sparkler, then I'm hoping that at least it tastes nice. Now, the last wine that I opened wasn't a sparkler. There was a bit of mild effervescence. And and I don't know whether that's going to be the case with this one or not. I've got a slight bit of encouragement in the sense that the bung is marginally raised. There is definitely a millimetre between the top of the bottle and the bung. Whether that's a good thing or whether it's just a false flag, who knows? So I want it to look nice in the glass. I want it to smell nice. I want it to taste nice. And I would really like it to be a sparkler. But if it's not, it's not. Right. I suspect that the yeast may have expired, but I can live in hope. So there was all sorts went into this from the garden. I can't even remember what all the fruits were, but it's basically, it's probably, if I can remember rightly, got apples, gooseberries, blackcurrants, and rhubarb, and maybe more. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But you'll have watched the film, so hopefully you know. Right. Am I going to get a pop? Oh, yes, I did. And there's a little bit of vapour. Right, okay. It was a hissy pop, but it was a pop. So I suspect that does mean I have a sparkle. I've got a sparkle. Oh, yes. Look at that. Right, let's just appreciate this. It's a sparkling rosé. Can you hear it? Okay, right, I've definitely got a sparkle. It's not a wild sparkle, but it's a sparkle, and that is good enough for me. So let's get a picture for the thumbnail. Right, now let's get tasting. Okay, so it smells quite dry. It's definitely got fruit in there, but nothing is absolutely distinct, to be honest. There's a berryness to it. It smells quite more alcoholic than what I think it is. What is it actually? It's 11.6%, so it's decent, and it does smell like you know, up there. Right, let's have a taster. Oh wow, that is lovely. It's a medium dry, and blackcurrant, wow. It's like ribena that's got some citrus in it and sparkling. That is so nice. Wow. Oh, I'm happy about this. Really happy about this. My one last week was a bit of a disappointment. This one is not a bit of a disappointment, and I suspect that over time this is going to get even better because the carbonation will probably build up, and I think those flavours will develop more. But I'll tell you something, this is a winner chicken dinner. That is really, really nice. Yeah, citrusy ribena. You could you know what? It's a bit, and oh God, am I going to say this? It's a bit like dark fruits, Strongbow dark fruits, but obviously better. But certainly more alcoholic and more thick with the berry flavour. But it's got that berryness that you get with dark fruits. It's nice. It's really nice. I am so happy about this. So it's a big thumbs up from me. I'm going to enjoy this tonight, and the good news is I've got lots more bottles of this because this was one that I believe, God, it's so long ago I can't remember, but I believe I started this one in the Munton's wine fermenter. Then it went into demijohns, and I think I've got like another 11 bottles of this, or another 10 bottles at least, so yay! Right, I hope you've enjoyed the film, folks. This has been a pleasure, and I'm going to enjoy this tonight. I'll catch you next week on the next film, whatever that may be. Thanks very much for watching the film. Thanks very much for comments. Please make comments. Please ask me questions. I always answer them. Please like if you've not already liked, and please subscribe to the channel. It's all hugely, hugely appreciated. Thanks very much, and I'll catch you next week. I'm not sure what film it's going to be yet. I've not even finished it. Right, see you then. Yes. You Reds.